Hey, good evening, guys. I'm live for session number 4 of Timeless Principles for Financial Freedom. Now, just want to make sure that all of you guys can hear me. So if you can hear me and you are live, you can see me live, can you please type what you had for dinner or anything at all so that I know that you guys can hear me? Wow, time passes so fast, right? It's really session 4, the steps of power planning for your finances. Now, this is a 4-session, I would say, four-part session of Timeless Principles. So, guys, not have dinner yet. Okay, hi, David. So I'm going to assume that you guys can hear me, right? So great. Now, before I begin, I'm just going to do a very quick recap on the first 3 sessions, so that it is something that's continuous and we apply each of these sessions again. For session number 1, the key message is this, that to achieve true financial freedom, we must acknowledge that everything belongs to God and we are to be a faithful servant. Again, remember to just return everything to God and be a faithful servant. And in fact, you achieve financial freedom. Why? Because it is no longer so-called your problem, but God's problem, and He will guide you to manage His finances. Cool? Okay, great. Now, second session is about investing principles, and we actually talk about certain checklists from Proverbs 31:10. But very importantly, the key principles in this investing, especially in this climate, is very important. Steady plowing, due diligence. Okay, there's no perfect timing, wise allocation, and also sharpening your axe. So this is very important because it is very easy to be tempted. How many of you guys agree that it's easy to be tempted? If yes, please type tempted. Meaning to say, when things come along the way and it seems like we can get rich quick, it is very tempting to want to jump into that particular vehicle or that particular method. But I can share with you again, it is promised that we will not go unpunished if we try to get rich quick. Okay? So now, session number 3, we talk about the roadmap to financial freedom, being a faithful steward. So step by step, making sure that we have insurance, debt-free, emergency funds, advanced goals, and legacy. Again, if you did not go through some of these sessions, you can go through and watch them again. Now, finally, today's session is session number 4, and it is a very interesting session in my opinion. We talk about the power of planning. Before I dive into the principles of putting everything together and we start taking action, I just want to share something. I'm just going to actually ask for wisdom from God right now for all of us here so that we can understand this particular session that we are going to go into. All right? So, dear Father in heaven, I pray that all of us here who are in this session will be blessed, will be given wisdom. As you mentioned, that if we lack wisdom, we can ask from you. And those who ask from you, we believe that you give it to us, we will become wise, and the things in front of us will become clear because it is in your sight. So please bless us in Jesus' name. Okay, everybody, I want to share with you something very powerful about planning. First of all, what do we plan for? We plan to achieve certain things. There are certain things that you have that is in the desires of your heart. And it's okay to desire things. Can you all please type desire? But there's a certain way to actually filter through the desire, refine it, plan it, take action, and subsequently reach the desire. Now, I want to share something first. A lot of people that I know, and even myself in the past, we do not even believe, the keyword, believe that we can achieve things that we desire. We believe that, it's just an idea that we have. How nice if this can happen to me. How nice if I can achieve that. Now, there's no really strong belief and faith. And biblically speaking, Timeless Principle says that if you believe in something but you keep wavering, you have doubts, you're sort of like a boat tossed in the sea, and you'll never achieve it. So the key thing, the number 1, is to believe. And let me prove to you that many of us have what it takes to achieve what we desire. Now, and I want to go back to the biblical principles. Number 1 thing, if we actually dive in deeper, there's this particular verse. Again, we can actually do the reference. We are all created in the image of God. And when we say we are created in the image of God, it doesn't mean that we look exactly like God, but we are given certain attributes that actually God has. And this was given to us when the whole entire earth and universe was created. Now, I want to be very careful in what I say. We are not God. A lot of people say you can become like God, or you can actually achieve things using certain things that actually like can prove that you are that there's a God inside you. I can share with you, we are not God. And the devil like to twist certain words, and I'm going to share with you something. We are created in the image of God. This is very clearly stated in Timeless Principles. And I want to share with you one more thing that is super powerful. When I saw this, it really sort of like my jaw dropped. Now, this particular incident in Genesis 11, right, is a very interesting situation where the humans, they come together and they start building a tower. It is something very symbolic. Okay, they actually built a physical tower. But what I want to share with you something is this. Whatever goals you have, it seems like, well, it's a goal that seems like you have to reach the sky in order to achieve the goals. Well, this is what God himself says about humans. Okay, he says that nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Okay, I need you to step back for a moment and look at this whole entire scenario. God, the creator of heaven and earth, was there looking at human beings building a tower, and he said that nothing that they plan will be impossible for them. So what does this mean? This means that, God knows us inside out. He knows our ability. God did not laugh and say, what are these bunch of guys doing? They're trying to be silly. They're trying to build a tower that reach the skies. What a silly effort. He did not say that. He said that nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. I hope that this actually gives you an assurance that we are not created to be mediocre, but we are created to do great things. Can you all please type that? Great things. And that means you. That means me as well. We have the ability and we have the attributes to do great things. So without a shadow of a doubt, whatever we plan to do will not be impossible for us. We can achieve it. The thing is this. Now that we have the belief, right? The thing is this. I need to actually tell you something. There is a plot twist. Okay, what is that plot twist, right? Is this 2 verses later, in that particular chapter, 2 verses later, in verse 8, this happened. The Lord, which is God, scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city or stopped building the tower. So this is the tower that they try to build to reach the sky. Okay, now I want to share with you something. As much as God give us a very huge ability to achieve things that we want to achieve, but there's one thing we can never achieve. The thing is, if we want to achieve something that goes against his will, we cannot fight him. We can't. Okay, so this is something that I really want to share is because, right, in Proverbs 16:9, one of the wisest men that ever lived, King Solomon, said this: in our hearts, or in their hearts, which is us, okay, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. So we can do almost anything we want, but it will be very silly if it's against God, because there's the only one thing that will get us into the roadblock. So there are so many examples. But guys, let me share with you. If we are aligned with God, okay, if we are aligned with God, we can achieve so many things. But we don't want to spend our whole entire life trying to achieve some goals and in the end realize it's against God. So this is very, very important. Now, if you know, right, if you actually read through the Timeless Principles, right, there are incidents when you are walking in the steps of God and in his will, right, you can raise the dead. Okay, I'm not saying that we can raise the dead, but there are instances recorded that humans can actually pray and ask God to raise the dead. At the same time, on the flip side, if you pretend to be nice, okay, because in the Bible, there are instances where people actually pretend to be charitable, they try to actually use God to make themselves look good, they can fall dead right immediately. Okay, so there are instances like that. And also, right, you see, I want to say something. The funny thing that a lot of people actually ask me is this, right? How do I, if God is for you, nothing can be against you. Does it make sense? You mean, imagine, if God is on your side, nothing can be against you. Okay, if you guys actually like that idea that God is on your side, right? Can you please type yes? Do you want God to be on your side? When you do something, he's behind your back. And I mean behind your back as in supporting you. Okay, not doing things behind your back, but he's supporting you. Wouldn't that be nice? So I heard a very funny question. So someone came and asked me this. Okay, he said, hey, Sean, how do I recruit God into my gang? How do I get God on my side? This is the funny thing. Because the Bible verse says this. It says that if God is for you, nothing is against you, correct? But the funny thing is, you cannot recruit God into your gang. If you want God to be on your side, the only way is you join his gang. Okay, I use the word gang, but the thing is, you got to join him and go according to his plan. You do not twist his plan to actually, how do I manipulate God and use his powers for my own gain? That can never, ever happen. Okay, so you can see, biblically speaking, there's this guy called Jonah. Jonah, actually, God told him, I want you to go to this city to preach to people. He did not. He ran away. So again, when you go opposite in God's direction, right, what happened? A storm came to hit his boat, and finally he was thrown over the boat and he was eaten up by a big fish. Dude, you don't want that to happen to you, correct? So you go against God, something like that will happen. But if you go along with God, Jesus, in his time, when the storm came, he walked on the storm, through the storm, and he can just stop the wind and say, okay, you guys, stop it already, and the storm disappear. This is something that happens when you're together with God versus you're against God. So there are many, many things that I would like to share about, but more importantly, I want to actually do a comparison. Now, we talk about the Tower of Babel. This particular project was never completed. You do not want your life to be like this. You do not want your life, in the sense it is incomplete, where you have a plan, you try to build it, but it's against God's will. Then in the end, it's left in a ruins and left stranded there. Now, on the flip side, you want to be like the walls of Nehemiah. And I want to use Nehemiah as a basis for talking about how we plan our goals, how we execute, and how we finish and achieve our goals. Very powerful 7 steps. So this is the whole entire storyline, and these are the 7 key principles, the walls of Nehemiah. Now, let me just explain what happens. Is because that at a point in time, the Israelites, they were actually conquered by the enemies, Babylonians, and that the wall was damaged. When a war happened, war, W-A-R, when they fight, the walls, okay, that was established was tore down, and then it becomes very unsafe. Imagine right now, we go to your house and we tear down the walls. So you have no protection, you have no boundaries, anyone can come in and attack you anytime. It is a very depressing period at that point in time. So this is from the book of Nehemiah. What was the first thing he did? Now, in chapter 1, the title or the subtitle, or whatever you call it, the paragraph, says this, Nehemiah's prayer. So at that point in time, right, he was actually working in the palace. So maybe high government job, like in today's context, maybe you're MP, maybe you're a minister, not okay, something to that effect. But at that point in time, right, you can see he actually got news that the wall of Jerusalem is broken and the gates has been burned down. When he heard these things, right, he sat down and he wept. He felt a certain desire. He felt a certain need to serve people. This is something I want to share with you guys as well. So the first step that we want to do is to pray. Whatever desire you have in your heart, pray. Okay, so this is the first thing he does. Okay, the first thing that he did, he fasted, he prayed, and you can see his desire is to serve and to help people. It's not so much of like, if you say that your desire is to have like $1 billion, but by the way, I will share with you a very funny story, okay? A very funny story. And this story was told to me by this lady called Elim Chu. I was having a tea session together with her. I don't even know whether she remember telling me this story. Because she did a lot of charity work. She's also a woman of God. She actually loves to actually like build charity, do God's work, right? And she's also an entrepreneur. Now, one day, right, she actually told us this, she said, hey, God, she prayed to God and said, God, I've been so faithful. Can you just give me a desire of my heart? And I desire for $2 billion. She said there are $2 billion. And after she prayed, right, she just felt that she wanted that $2 billion. And it happened. About 1 or 2 weeks later, right, she received a phone call and a charity organization called her and say, Elim, can you actually help us run this foundation? And then when they told her more about this foundation, right, they say that this foundation has a fund of $2 billion. When she heard that, right, she sort of like laughed, she burst out laughing. And she told God, hey, God, you really got a sense of humor. I meant that $2 billion in my bank account. Now, you can see that, right? The key thing is this. When your heart is right, God will actually meet your desires. But sometimes God is very funny and creative. So, it's not to say that you must be super specific. Otherwise, God misunderstands. God doesn't misunderstand. God knows what you want. But God knows what's good for you as well. So, anyway, coming back to here, when you have a heart's desire, pray so that you're aligned. Because again, you don't want to go against God's will, or it's actually your own internal desire. Really pray and seek understanding to see whether you are aligned with it. Very, very important. Step one is to pray. Okay. Now, this story is told to me by Elaine Chu. You can check out with her. Very, very funny. Okay, what is step two? After he prayed, right, he decided, yes, this is according to God's will. I want to rebuild the wall. Okay. Instead of building the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Babel is built to prove that you are better than God, to prove that you are God. Now, the rebuilding the Jerusalem's wall, right, is actually for God's people, for God to be remembered and for God to be actually glorified. So when you go there, right, step two, after you prayed, step two is to inspect current situation. Now, let me bring it to today's context, or to current context when we talk about our financials. Our financials, at the end of the day, it may look like a tower or like a castle. I'm going to use this analogy like a wall, okay? We're going to build a wall around ourselves. Now, the thing is this, finances is actually like a protection or a resource that helps us. It is merely a resource. That wall, is it important? It is important to keep us safe. So finances, is it important? It's important to help us achieve certain things. But their finances cannot be the centerpiece. It is just a wall. Can you all please type WALL, a wall. Now, in order to build a wall with a financial fortress around you, because you are a good steward and you want the financial fortress to be able to give you a certain sense of good stewardship, it is important for step two for you to inspect the current situation. How broken is the wall, or how unfinished is the wall? Does it make sense? Okay, if it makes sense, please type 2 for step 2. So a lot of people in our finances, right? Okay, initially, maybe we don't even care about our finances. We just buy the lottery, hoping to win someday. But actually, at that point in time, right, many years ago, when I decided, wow, I'm a steward of God in terms of the money. Money is not just for me to actually play around. I do want the money to achieve certain goals, which is like the IDEAL goals, to actually make sure that my family is well fed, my family has an inheritance. I decided I want to actually build up my finances. So first one, pray and seek God for His blessings. But I can tell you that actually many years ago, I did not really pray that much. Okay, so I met into certain situations which I'll share with you guys in a while's time. But what I did was I checked my current situation. One thing that I really wanted was to have passive income. Passive income. Now, so in order to create passive income, which is like I want a stream of passive income, it's like a big walk, right? I must know what is my current situation of passive income. I went to dig out and check how much investment I have, how much dividends I have, how much rental income I have from properties, and the answer is I got zero. I got nothing. But it's important to face that situation. Not only do I have zero passive income, I was actually in debt because I bought a house. I actually have to pay off debt, and my finances is in a total mess. It is so messy that I don't even dare to look at it. Maybe currently your finances is in a mess. How many of you know what I'm talking about? If you know what I'm talking about, please type me or type mess, but you need to inspect. In fact, Nehemiah, what did he do? He inspects the wall. He was there for 3 days and he actually moved around. You can see by night, he went to examine and then see which gates was actually destroyed by fire. Go and take a look. Be honest. Know the current situation. Without knowing the current situation, we cannot actually repair the wall. We are just hoping, okay, hopefully, suddenly I kick into a bag and I open the bag, oh, a few $1 million. That is not going to happen, my brothers and sisters, okay? So really be very, very diligent in inspecting the wall. Okay, this is step 2. In fact, it is you can apply this to even your health, to anything. Inspect the current situation. Now, step 3, what did he do? After he inspect the current situation, he understand what is lacking. Step 3, he actually create a strategy. Can you all please type strategy? Now, in terms of strategy, he gathered and allocated resources. So gather and allocate resources. He realized, okay, I need this portion of the wall to be built, and therefore I need certain amount of men, I need certain amount of materials to build this wall. He began to calculate, what do I need in order to reach that? Same thing, if you say you want to achieve, let's say, financial freedom, or let's say you want to actually achieve, let's say, a certain net worth for certain reasons, there's where you must know, where am I right now? Like right now, I'm totally zero, and in order to reach there, I need a certain amount of maybe assets to be working for me, to be producing this passive income. Or maybe you realize, oh, my insurance is not taken care of. I need certain advisors to help me cover up this portion, this hole, to make sure that insurance is done. Let's say my debt is growing very, very high, debt, okay? I need to actually allocate certain amount of income every month to pay off the debt and to cure off the debt. You must know your situation. Then step 3, you must gather the resources, allocate the resources, and start playing the game. This is very, very important. This is strategy, okay? Now, I want to go a little bit deeper into what kind of resources we need. Typically, we need 3 main kind of resources. The first kind is people resource. What do I mean by that? Alone in ourselves, we cannot do every single thing. And this is very apparent. In the timeless principles, even the richest man and the smartest man on earth, who is called King Solomon, once he become king and when he has wisdom, right, he gathered wise counselor. Interestingly, let me share with you something else. Even Jesus, the Son of God, what did he do? He actually gathered the 12 disciples. Now, actually, frankly speaking, Jesus, he can just pop and make everybody achieve what he wants. But the thing is, one of the key resources, he actually sort of train people and also do together with them. Okay, so this is very important, people resource. So Proverbs 15:2 says, without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. Pause for a moment. In the context of these advisors, right, in Proverbs 15:22, these advisors are wise men. Can you all please type wise? W-I-S-E. Meaning to say they are educated, they are informed, they are experienced, and typically they are a little bit elderly. They have experience, like I mentioned before. It doesn't mean many advisors doesn't mean you want to buy a certain stock, you go to the coffee shop and you ask everybody at the coffee shop, hey, what do you think about this stock? Now, I'm not saying people at the coffee shop are not wise. But typically, if you want to actually build up your finances, you got to go to people who are already wise. They are advisors. Not many wise guys, many wise advisors, okay? It is very, very important. This is one thing that you actually have to take note of. Many people are also fools. When you mix around with fools, that's where you go into deep trouble also. Anyway, this is the first resources, because when we plan to do something, typically many people are ahead of us and they've already achieved that already. So for me, years ago, I actually tried to invest, but I didn't really did so well. So I actually went to learn from people who are already very successful. That's where I get better ideas on how to do it. So number 1, people. Now, can you all make a guess? What are the other resources that we need? Can you all just type what are the other resources? The second resource is, of course, money. Now, money is just a resource. I know that we are here to study about the financial principles, but you must understand, we are studying about how to manage a resource. Do not let money become the main goal. Money is the resource to help you achieve the goals. Okay. So interestingly, if our goal in a sense is to become a faithful steward, to build up a financial fortress, we also need money to invest to actually build up the fortress. So Luke 14:22 says, which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down? Again, I think I mentioned this in the previous sessions. Sit down means it's going to take some time. So your legs will get tired okay? And then you sit down and count the cost, okay? It's very important. Don't go into a project without first planning. A lot of people say, no, it's okay, I move in faith. Come on, guys. This is called laziness. This is called laziness. Now, unless, of course, I should not judge. I'm not a judge of any situation, but I'm talking about this is financial principles from the Bible, okay? Of course, if let's say God asks you to go and become there are certain instances, by the way. There are instances in the Bible as well. Jesus told his disciples, go out, don't take any money, take nothing, and then just go to that town. So you don't need, there are certain point in time, you don't need anything, this is my direct instructions to you. Don't take any financial resources, go and I'll provide for you. There are instances like that. But in most cases, it is always you have to first plan. Can you all please type plan? And this is something maybe some people don't like. You must understand, do you really hear God telling you to actually do something? Or are you trying to be lazy, not plan, and you want things fast, you want things quick, that's why you actually jump into it? Well, it is actually between you and God. I'm not here to decide and also judge you. It is about us knowing this, okay? Now, the third kind of resources is actually time. So in Nehemiah 2:6, he went to the king and asked him for a certain period of time. So it is important to set deadlines as well. Can you all please type time? 2 things about time. You see, the king actually asked, how long will your journey take and when will you be back? Because he wanted to rebuild the wall. And the king actually asked, so how long is this project? you need to actually set a time for this project. How long is it before you actually reach your IDEAL, your ideal roadmap? When will you reach debt free? When will you get your emergency funds? Set a certain deadline. That is very important. Okay, so time is important in terms of setting deadline. And the next portion is you got to set time to make sure you kickstart on this journey. So what I did initially when I decided to become, like build up my finances, I needed extra time because I was already working. I was working long hours. Where do I find the additional time? You got to actually reallocate your time. Time is one of the most precious things. Instead of watching another hour of TV, you got to say stop. Even though that is very interesting, you know. Don't know whether Eddie will marry Jane or marry Jane or Lucy, something like that. I mean, whatever happens to them on the TV, they got nothing to do with you, correct? So you got to actually spend your time to craft aside your time to become wiser, to learn from wise counsel, to actually count the cost and to actually learn and to build your finances. This is very important when we talk about like certain goals that you want. Okay, so time is super important. Yes, time. Okay, now so these are the 3 key resources, and let me go back to and also this one is talking about we have to learn to number of days in the bigger scheme of things. Every single day is like a brick. Yesterday I was sharing at one of the talks by Success Resources, and one thing that I learned is this: imagine your life, your entire life, okay, to be like a building. Okay, is your life going to become a beautiful building that glorifies God, like a temple of a God, or is it going to be like a ruin? Now let me share with you this. Your life, do you have a blueprint? Do you actually plan out what's going to happen? Do you actually pray and seek God for vision and then be diligent in doing it? If you are not planning and having a blueprint, can you all please type blueprint? If there's no blueprint for your life, you know what's blueprint? Let me explain to you. And I love this story a lot, okay? Now, I want you to imagine, right? Let's say one day you're jogging, you're doing the One Punch Man workout, you're jogging, right? And then you saw a friend building a house on the side of the road. He has a plot of land and he's putting a brick and another brick and another brick, building a house, putting cement, very diligently building a house. And you ask him, hey friend, what are you building? What is the house going to be like? Is it a 2-story building, a 3-story building? Is there going to be swimming pool? And he tell you this. He said that, actually, I'm not too sure, you know. I'm not too sure. I just build and see what happens. Now, is that the same answer for your life? Because we are taught to number our days. We are taught to plan ahead. We are taught to be diligent. So you see, if every day you sleep and you wake up, it's like a brick. Do you purposefully place the brick somewhere because you have a blueprint for your life? You're living a purpose-driven life. You know what you can do with your life, or are you just putting a brick there and you say, let's see what happens? Now, every day is a block of our time. Okay, so it says, teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. It is very important. Okay, it's very important. So I just want to say, really pray and then ask God for wisdom to actually plan our life ahead. You do not want to live a life and at the end you realize, what have I been doing with my time? What have I been doing in my life? And by the way, by the time you meet God, He will ask you that, what have you been doing with the things I gave you? The time, the talents, what have you been doing with them? And it requires planning. Okay, so it's very important. Okay, great. So this is the first 3 steps. Now step 4. This one is pretty straightforward. Is to start building. Nehemiah 2:18. They replied, let us start rebuilding. So they began this good work. Have you begun? Now, if you don't have a plan, of course, you don't know what to begin, right? But I see people who plan and they never started. So in a previous session, we also talked about perfect timing. King Solomon says there's no perfect timing. Farmers who actually watch the wind, watch the weather and stuff like that, they will never start planting. You reap what you sow. If you reap nothing, you sow nothing. Okay? It's very important. Get started. Can you all please type start? Start. Okay, start means as you plan, you get started. And I want to share with you something. But Sean, you told me to plan, so I need to finish planning before I start. Yes, you need to have a general plan, and once you plan to a certain amount, you have to start. Remember, we talk about setting deadline. So I want to share with you something interesting. If you look at the next step, right, step 5, let me share with you this. Opposition will arise. You see, opposition to the rebuilding. So as Nehemiah, he actually prayed, he get resources, he planned, and then after that, he start building, right? Opposition, enemies wanted to attack them. Guys, You may be scratching your head. Sean, I thought you told me that when I'm going in God's will, everything will be good and steady and God will be behind my back. How come got people want to attack me? Welcome to the real world, okay? Whatever you plan is not going to be smooth. It's not, okay? And it's very apparent here. Nehemiah was building the wall of Jerusalem to glorify God, and God still allow enemy to come and attack them. Welcome to the real world. So what do? After you plan and you start taking action, be very sure. I can guarantee you, you will meet into obstacles. You will have problems. Can you all please type problems? But problems is an excellent sign. Problem means that you are taking action. When you have no problem, means that you have not started. Okay, then, well, nothing happened. Houston, we have a problem. Why? Because they really launched a rocket into space. That's where they meet into problem. Okay, but back to this portion. What do you do when you have a problem? So he became, as you can see, the enemy became angry, and then after that, he started to actually wanted to start fighting them, right? So what did Nehemiah do? You see, we continued the work with half the men holding spears, and he actually reallocated his resources. In other words, he adjusted his plans. So he went back to step 3. If you remember what step 3? Step 3 is the strategy. He realized, wow, this strategy will not continue to work because problems are coming. So he said, okay, instead of everybody start working, half of you start working, half of you start defending. It's maybe like COVID. You have a good plan and everything. Hey, I pray to God. God give me this heart desire. Pam, COVID suddenly come and hit you. What do? You have to reallocate your resources. I already started planning. I started investing. Suddenly my stocks crash. Why? Because actually COVID comes, opposition comes. You got to reallocate, review and adjust. So you also have the correct mindset, guys. You have to have the correct expectation that you will meet the problems. Okay, now, you know what's the cool thing? This is step 5. Step 6, I have a good news for you guys. Are you ready for good news? If yes, please type great. Because this good news is going to allow you to understand how things really work. Step 6 is this. Okay, it's chapter 4, right? Let's look at chapter 5 of Nehemiah. Step 6, more problems, further opposition. Okay, this is no joke, guys. Okay, some of you type great already, right? The good news is there will be more and more and more problems as you keep moving ahead and ahead and ahead. But the cool thing is you cannot climb a smooth mountain. Okay, this is not a biblical quote, but well, biblically, there is further opposition to the rebuilding. So what do? Keep praying, keep adjusting, keep working. And sometimes all this problem brings you nearer to God and depend on Him. Well, what it also means to say is this, right? Because I've seen, I actually feel a little bit sad when I say this particular story. I still remember this gentleman, and I really feel quite sad when I say this story because many years ago, he actually came for one of my events and he was a photographer, very talented photographer. And then somehow or other, we started speaking about biblical principles. And then when he know that I'm a Christian, right, he just say, okay, Sean, forget it. I don't want to hear about these timeless principles or anything. And then he told me this. He used to be a missionary. Meaning to say he actually devoted his life to want to serve God. He and his wife went over to another country to do missionary work, and he met into a lot of opposition. He met into a lot of problems, and he prayed. He asked God to help. He asked people to send resources and help him, and he felt very, very stuck. Eventually, he gave up, and he said, God is not real. If God is real, there's no way if I do his work, I'll meet into problems. No, but that's not the truth. The truth is, God is real. And even when you do his work, you will meet into problem. But as you persist on, you continue the race, you finish the race, that's where a great prize will be there waiting for us. Okay? So when you see problems, right, understand that this is the time. Lean closer to God, ask him to help you. Okay? Because eventually, you keep adjusting, go back and then review and review and review. And this is what actually happened to me in terms of my financial journey. When I started investing, I wanted to build a certain amount of net worth. I wanted to build a certain amount of passive income. The first time I invest, within 3 months, I lost a lot of money. First problem, correct? First time problem. But again, it is true that I did not really pray before that. And the wise counsel that I seek may not be as wise. People who actually give me advice on what stocks to buy may not be as credible as I think. And I did not do my due diligence. So after losing a lot of money, I began to actually invest more to try to make it back. But I want to make it back quick. That's why I actually lose even more. So eventually, I begin to seek really wise counsel, people who have been there and done that. I get better strategy. Now, after getting better strategy, right, I begin to invest in a certain way, and my investment begin to build. In fact, it began to build in such a steady way, right, that people ask me to go and teach them. That's where problems comes again. Because when I start to teach, right, when I was handling a community, there are many stock ideas, and I realized at that point in time, right, some stock ideas sounds very, very tempting. A way to get rich quick. You can get high ROI. I went into a particular stock, my whole entire portfolio suffered. It dropped by a lot. So that's where, right, I realized problems come over and over again. But with each drop, with each time I lost money, correct, I actually review. Again, remember, keep praying, keep adjusting, and keep working. That time, right, the stock dropped so badly, right? I remember praying and asking God, please let the stock go back up, please. But you see, at that point in time, actually the stock went to zero. It went bankrupt. It got delisted, went to zero, and I lost a lot of money. But I realized it was good for me. It is a medicine that's hard to swallow, but it's good for me because I added to my checklist to never buy a particular stock like this before, and I also added a very important portion of my stock investment, which is diversification, which is actually one of the timeless principles that I got to learn subsequently. But after I apply all this, that's where things became better and it started to grow. So sometimes, right, your whole entire journey to so-called success, right, it's not going to be like a road upwards, It's going to be like a stock market, up, down, up, down, up, down, and eventually it moves up. But if you don't start doing something, you're stuck here, you can never reach where you want, okay? So it's very important. You must have the correct expectation that even if you are doing according to God's will, it's going to go up and down. Now, the good news is this. The good news is, finally, step 7, finish up and acknowledge God's help. Acknowledge that this whole success is not by your own. I've heard people say, I'm a self-made millionaire. I'm a self-made person. You are not a self-made person. You are just an ungrateful person. You're just someone who forgot what other people has done for you, forgot what God has done for you, and you will not go unpunished. Okay? You will become a miserable person because nobody will actually want to work with you anymore. You're such an ingrate, you forget about other people. But anyway, coming back to this, the funny thing is this. They already completed the war. They completed the war, means celebration time. But funny, still got opposition. Now, but at this point in time, right, once you reach success, sometimes the opposition becomes bigger. Meaning to say, once you achieve success, there are few kinds of problems that will come. Number one, bigger problem in terms of people want to actually sort of like hit into your wealth or like maybe accuse you of certain things. Number two, right, the opposition may come from inside. Will become super proud. Now, but the thing is this, when you acknowledge that it's from God, the enemies, your enemies, people who want to actually harm you, or even the prideful person inside, when they hear about the fact that this is God's work, you can see your enemies will be afraid and they lose their confidence because they realize that this work has been done with the help of God. This is super powerful, meaning to say that your financial fortress or whatever goals you want, it will definitely be a fortress that cannot be shaken. It is very, very powerful. Okay, so these are the 7 steps, and I want to just bring it to an end by going to a summary slide. So this is session 4, planning and making it happen. Number 1, step 1, remember to pray. Tonight, in fact, before we end this whole thing, I'll just pray together with all of us to ask God to give us a wisdom and a clear direction. And some things may happen. Okay, later I'll share with you another story before we end. Now, step 2 is to inspect, know your current situation. Otherwise, you cannot move forward without knowing where you are. You want to go to a particular destination. I want to go to the top of this mountain, but I don't know where am I? If you don't know where you are, how are you going to navigate, right? You must know where you are and your current situation. No matter how bad it is the second step before you can move forward. Now, step 3, create a strategy by gathering resources and allocating resources. Time is very important. The people that you seek advice from is very important. And finally, your financial resources, make sure you set aside to clear off debt to fund your whole entire venture. Now, step 4, start building. This is the part I see a lot of people not doing, okay? Now, anyway, once you start doing, it's going to be beautiful. You are going to meet into opposition. Step 5, that's where you must review and adjust. Oh no, opposition comes, it's a failure. No, it's not. It is just part of the plan. Okay, now you know that it's part of the plan. In fact, step 6 is the same as step 5. I just want to double it to tell you to never give up. Never give up. Okay? And finally, step 7, keep doing, and finally finish up the whole job. Now, guys, this is a very powerful 7 steps that Nehemiah took to create and build up the wall, and it was a success. In fact, you think about it, guys. Once you set a goal and you pray, and then you start to actually inspect the situation, you have a strategy, correct? And you start doing, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to see some results, or you're going to see some problems, correct? Results, problems, and that's where you readjust, go back to step 3, readjust and continue building, readjust and continue building. If you keep improving each time and keep getting better and keep moving forward, how can it be possible that you never finish building the wall? You will finish building what you set out to do. Now, of course, if that wall is amazingly big and it takes generation, at least you finish to the point where you're supposed to build. And God will come and say, good and faithful servant, you have done your part. You have taken the talents that I give you and you multiply it by building up to this certain stage. And that's where you come into my room, okay, or my space, and then let's celebrate together. This is wonderful, isn't it? How many of you guys love to actually be called a good and faithful servant and enjoy this whole entire process? Remember to enjoy this process. Now, it is not going to be easy, but it's going to be very enjoyable. In fact, because it's not easy, that's why it's enjoyable. Because you will lean into God's help. Okay? Now, let me end off with a story before I pray for all of us. I want to share with you the story of this gentleman. His name is called George Washington Carver. It's not the president, okay, but you can search on him. He was a slave. He was born as a slave in late 1800s. Very interesting story. So he was eventually adopted into this family and he began to learn about God's word. And let me share with you what's very funny. When he began to know God personally, he prayed this particular statement. He said, God, tell me the mystery of the universe. I want to be someone who is useful. I want to be someone who can do great things. Great things, God. Please tell me the mystery of the universe so that I can achieve something great. Some of you know this, right? And this gentleman, right, he said that after he prayed this, right, something happened. He felt as if God was telling him, the mystery of the universe is reserved for God. For you, George Washington Carver, I'm going to give you this. This is a peanut. So sometimes you say, God, I want to do great things. And God say, here, take this peanut and go and do great things out of this. Now, they say that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, correct? But you know what did this gentleman do? He said, okay, in that case, if God gives me a peanut, I will make the best use of a peanut. Whatever situation you're in right now, you may wish for a better opportunity. You may wish for maybe better financial situation. Maybe your current situation is worse than peanut. It looks terrible. But let's see what this guy did with a peanut. He actually leaned into God's wisdom and he took that peanut and he created 300 products from peanut. So he became the peanut man. And as Jennifer mentioned, right, he was rumored to create the peanut butter, but there was quite a lot of argument saying, no, he did not create, someone created it first. Doesn't matter. He had 300 almost patented products, which included skin lotion, medicine, the whole entire meal with just one particular thing, the peanut, okay, the peanut butter guy. A lot of people know him as the peanut butter guy. Now, you know what's the amazing thing? Because he became so well known as the peanut guy, he was invited to colleges to actually teach students, teach even poor farmers, teach other people how to create things and become an innovator. He even he was the first black man to stand in front of the Congress to share certain ideas on how he can improve the community. So in fact, he was recognized as a pretty great man. But in the Bible, it says, if you want to be great, you must learn to serve. And sometimes service comes from a peanut. Just starting from a peanut. So whatever situation you're in, don't look down on it. You may actually create 300 different types of products from a peanut. When I read this story, I find that it's very, very amusing. You can actually search about him. And I want to share this. Jeremiah 29:11 says this. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And I want to share this. At the point in time where this verse was written, right, the people were in a terrible situation. Maybe right now, COVID is a terrible situation. Maybe right now, your finances is in a terrible situation. But God has a plan for you. Not to harm you, but to give you hope and a future. And that applies for me as well. So I feel happy always in this verse. Okay? So now, finally, I just want to actually pray for all of us before we close this session. These four four session series. I mean, I hope that you guys have benefited, and if you like it, maybe next time we can do some other series about entrepreneurship and other wisdom we can actually draw from timeless principle. If you like it, please let me know, and we can study together. Personally, I do enjoy it. There's a certain amount of stress using God's word, but I think that I grow from it as well. So Psalms 37:4 says, "Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." This is a promise from God, but the first thing is to take delight in the Lord. Follow His principles, follow His ways, ask Him for His direction, ask to be in His will, and He will give you the desires of your heart, starting from maybe even a peanut. Maybe some of you got peanut allergy, so this may not be the best like so-called analogy, but this is something that, a very interesting story that I want to share with you guys. So let us close in a prayer and ask God for wisdom and a direction, because step one is to pray. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, I pray that all of us here, we can seek your will. We want to actually lean close to you, get your wisdom, get your help, and depend on you and not on our own strength. We do not have goals that are selfish. We have goals that is like given from you, so that we really live a purposeful life. And this life will be a life that you can walk together with us, and we walk together with you, and you can carry us through the storms. You can show us the mystery of the universe, of the world, through maybe even just a peanut, or through whatever situation we're in. We pray that you open our eyes, open our hearts, so that we can lean on you. In Jesus' name we pray. Okay, guys, I hope that this has been a beneficial session, and I'll see you guys around on this page and in this group. Okay, have a blessed evening and a blessed week ahead. Goodbye. Bye-bye.